Hello, my name is Sarah Schroeder and I'm the Senior EPR Data Quality Training Facilitator for Education at Bradford Teaching Hospitals. In this video, I will be going through how to discharge a patient following treatment, how to discharge a patient and defer treatment, as well as how to delay discharge. All SOPs for this process can be found via the EPR SOPs desktop icon. Once you've double-clicked onto the icon and navigated through to the appropriate trust, you can either locate the appropriate SOP by going into the applicable section, or you can do a document quick search located at the top of the screen. All titles for the SOPs covered within this video will be provided in the description box below, as well as timestamps if you wish to skip to this section. In order to discharge a patient following treatment, within capacity management, ensure that you have navigated through to the ward where the patient is currently admitted. The house icon on the bed will indicate the current clinical discharge status for the patient, and this can be seen when you hover over the house icon. Next, we would then access the discharge list, ensure that you have the patient record that you wish to discharge selected, and ensure that you have checked the status column, and it should show as either requested or started depending on how the clinicians have completed the PowerChart depart process. When discharging from a started status, you can hover over the patient, selecting the drop down to the left, and within the discharge option you will then be able to complete the discharge. This will show that the patient has departed, and this should only be done when the patient has physically left the ward. This will update the house icon with a red dot. From the discharge list, you can then return to the drop down. All of the discharge options will be grayed out now, so the final step in this process would be to select PM conversation and discharge. This will launch the discharge conversation, where the discharge information filled in during the clinical depart process will be automatically populated. It is giving me a notification confirming if I have checked that this is the correct patient and encounter for the discharge. I am going to select yes because I am confident, but if you are not sure that you have selected the correct information, select no at that stage and return to the original screen. Discharge method. This should be automatically populated depending on what information has been input within PowerChart. Now, because this patient was an elective admission, I do have some further mandatory fields that I need to complete. As this patient is being discharged following treatment, I can select that the admission offer outcome is treatment completed. Coming into the RTT status, I can view the current RTT status is 30, which means that this admission was intended to treat this patient. As the treatment has been completed, I can confidently select the 30 code. If you are not confident with RTT, please contact the training team and we can go through this with you. Ensure the discharging staff member has been completed. And from here, you can select OK, and this will discharge the patient. The bed status will change to dirty, and once this has been cleaned, we can then change this back to available. In order to discharge a patient and defer the treatment, again, you will need to ensure that you are located onto the ward that the patient is currently admitted in. The house icon, once again, will indicate the clinical discharge status for the patient, which you can see by hovering over the house icon. From here, you can then locate the discharge list, ensure the status has been started, hovering over the patient's name and selecting the drop down to the left. Coming to the discharge, we are going to complete the discharge, and this should be done when the patient has physically left the ward. This will update the status into a patient departed status, and it will also update the house icon with a red dot. Final stage is to come back to the drop down. All of the discharge options are grayed out, same as they did before. So the final step is to come to the PM conversation and discharge the patient. This will then launch the discharge conversation, where the discharge information filled in during the clinical depart process should also be populated, the same as the previous discharge that we did. Once again, it is asking if I am discharging the correct patient with the correct encounter. So I have confirmed that I do have the correct patient, and I'm just going to populate the discharge method and the discharge destination. But as I said, this should pre-populate based on what has already been previously entered within PowerChart. As we are discharging the patient with a deferred treatment, the admission offer outcome should be treatment deferred as the treatment had not been completed. This will trigger a 28-day rebook date. This is confirming that we have the responsibility to ensure that the patient is rebooked within 28 days. I am going to select yes to auto-calculate this, which has now been populated for the 2nd of October. As the treatment has been deferred, the original plan for this admission has also not been completed. The current RTT status was intended to be a treatment, so this should have stopped the patient's clock, but as the treatment has been deferred, I am going to have to ensure that the clock is continued. We cannot select any of the codes beginning with 3 because this will stop the patient's clock when the treatment has not been provided. Ensure that the discharging staff member has been completed and press OK. The bed status will change to dirty, and once cleaned, we can then mark this back to available. In order to delay a discharge, again, you must ensure that you have navigated to the ward where the patient is currently admitted. Once again, the house icon will indicate the clinical discharge status for the patient. From here, you can navigate through to the discharge list and locate the patient within this discharge list. You can check the status column, which it's currently showing that this patient's discharge is in a started state. This will be dependent on the clinical details entered by the clinician within the PowerChart part process. When a discharge is in a started state, you can select the patient record from the discharge option, which can be viewed via the drop down to the left in the discharge, and delay discharge. This will give a number of options. For this scenario, I am going to say that we are waiting on a prescription for this patient and press OK. Once the reason for the delay in the discharge has been resolved, you can then follow the rest of the discharge process. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions relating to any of the processes covered within this video, you can contact any member of the team on the email addresses provided. Alternatively, you can email epr.dqtraining@bthft.nhs.uk. This email account is monitored by the entire EPR training team and it is monitored daily.